Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So why do you think we sing Jai Radha Madhava before we give class? Yeah.
Is it to I don't know why I was thinking of something from Mother Saraswati.
There's actually a verse that's related to that, but not Jai Radha Madhava specifically. Yeah, so Gopal Prabhu is saying it contains all the pastimes of Krishna Vrindavan. Yeah. So I was just thinking while I was singing that actually it's evoking a holy place for us to study Bhagavatam in, right? Bringing all the places of Vrindavan and the pastimes of the Lord, like Yamuna Tira Vanachari, so on the banks of the Yamuna, and then we're with Radha Madhava, and then Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj. It's like the Vrindavan atmosphere, so that we can have that higher consciousness before we study Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Yeah, and Prabhupada actually said that prayer contains everything. Yeah, like Gopal said. Okay, so we'll do text 6. And what I'd like is to have some readers. So if you could have the microphones ready, one on each side. And we're going to do 10 verses. And I'm going to briefly pause after each verse and elaborate on a little bit. So I'll start with text 6. One has to become faithful by practicing. Who's speaking here again? Do you remember? Remember who's speaking? His mother? Starts with a K.
Kapila?
Yes. Yeah. One has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system and must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. So what is unalloyed? Unalloyed means what?
Unconditional or undisturbed.
Yeah, unmixed, uncontaminated by anything else, pure, right? Unalloyed. Nothing else is going to get in the way. So we're going to come back to this verse to do the purport. Okay, Shruti Prabhu, do text 7.
In executing devotional service, one has to see every living entity equal, without enmity towards anyone, yet without intimate connections with anyone.
Okay. The tone under this material world is someone said, you should get up and come running with me, jogging with me, right? There might be some obligation, some guilt, some different things that we feel I have to. But in the spiritual context, when we hear these words, what we can remember is that it's coming from for our highest benefit, right? The purpose is for our highest benefit and our well-being. So it's not just like a list of rules we have to do and like robots, like we must do these things. It's coming from love. And if we want to get a certain result, then we need to do these things. And the result is the eternal joyous condition of the spirit soul, which is to be in connection again with the Supreme Person. So to remember that goal and then go, yeah, in order to get that goal, then these are the things I need to do. But we're here independently and we have a choice on whether we want to practice spiritual life or not. So Krishna's always giving us that opportunity. It's never forced upon us, right? So just keeping that in mind when we hear the words, if the words ever feel forceful, that's because it's for our highest happiness. Then you do those things like you said. Okay, text number 8. Yeah, you can read it.
For his income, a devotee should be satisfied with what he earns without giving difficulty. He should not eat more than what is necessary. He should live in a secluded place and always be thoughtful, peaceful, friendly, compassionate, and self-realized.
Okay, so for the last 2 verses, we heard a list of things. And I meant to mention this too, that in the purports for these verses, Prabhupada gives a lot of explanation for each of these items. So they're not, there's nuance in here. Like, for example, in the last verse, it said one has to observe celibacy, right? So it sounds like a very black and white statement. In the purport, Prabhupada actually says that there's different ways of doing that. And one of them is to be abstinent completely from sex life. Another one is to do sex life under religious principles. So there's variety within that principle. And then he also talks about that, remember the word grave in the last verse? It means to be silent. Like, that's the actual Sanskrit word. And Prabhupada says, silent doesn't mean not talking. Speaking what? It means, what is monam? What does the actual silence mean in a spiritual context? Yeah, so speaking about uplifting things that actually awaken the soul, not just talking with our mouths and like, oh, just about matter, right? So again, when we're studying these verses, we have to be thoughtful and go, okay, it doesn't literally mean I have to be silent now. That's it, zip, and I'm done. I'm never talking to anybody in the ashram again. It means applying the principle of silence, which is to silence the more material parts of us and to awaken and speak about the spiritual parts. And then in this verse, Prabhupada is saying that we should live in a secluded place, right? Again, it sounds like, oh, that's very specific in this purport, in this verse. So in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how actually the highest principle is to live with those who are going to uplift us. And there's a nice sentence here. I thought it made me think about Krishna House, actually. A devotee should select a place of residence where everyone is interested in devotional service. Pretty simple, like description of a residence place. That is actual solitude. Why? Because it's solitude from the material energy, right? So really, studying the scripture, we have to be very thoughtful how we apply it. And I was feeling so grateful to Prabhupada when I was reading these purports. Like, he really helps us to digest the meaning of the verses. Okay, any thoughts so far or questions? Okay, so let's do text number 9.
One's seeing power should be increased through knowledge of spirit and matter, and one should not unnecessarily identify himself with the body and thus become attracted by bodily relationships.
Okay, so not getting caught up in mine, me, this is my, myself, me, and mine. Okay, text 10.
One should be situated in the transcendental position beyond the stages of material consciousness and should be aloof from all other conceptions of life. Thus, realizing freedom from false ego, one should see his own self just as he sees the sun in the sky.
So what about if we're not fully aloof from all other conceptions of life? That's a tricky one, right? It sounds like we have to be at this level. And I wanted to just remind you that in the database, I think over 150 times, Prabhupada talks about Krishna consciousness being a gradual process. So we hear these descriptions of the goal, and then we can also be really self-reflective and go, where am I on that journey or that path? Okay, let's say the goal is over here, and I'm like over here. Right? I'm reading this verse, and I say, well, I'm not aloof from other conceptions of life. I get pretty caught up when my friend tells me something about me that I don't like, right? Or something. So then I just know, okay, there's the goal, and I keep making slow incremental progress toward that goal without getting discouraged. That's the purpose of Krishna consciousness, to feel enlivened and not discouraged. Okay, text number 11.
A liberated soul realizes the absolute personality of Godhead, who is transcendental and who is manifest as a reflection even in the false ego. He is the support of the material cause, and he enters into everything. He is absolute, one without a second, and he is the eyes of the illusory energy.
Is there anything in here that surprises you?
He's also the false ego.
It didn't quite say he is,
Reflect,
but
well,
yeah.
as a reflector.
So He's manifest as a reflection even in the false ego. That's a surprising statement, right? It's not something we hear very often. So even within our false ego state, there's all of that, all of this material energy is a reflection of the Lord. And the purport, Prabhupada says that Krishna is the background or the backdrop for this entire creation, including our conditioned body, mind, intelligence, ego, right? All of that. It's all a product of that reflection of the Lord, the material reflection. So even when we think we're the furthest away from Krishna, he's there too, even in the darkness. It's a nice sentence. It says, he is present there only as a reflection, but a pure devotee can realize that in the darkness of material illusion, the only light is the Supreme Lord, who is its support. So that's a nice one, yes.
I was watching this video about Christian mysticism, and it was talking about why does God hide himself? And it's so that for the purpose that the seeker has to seek. God wants the seeker to seek, and so he hides himself under layers and layers and layers.
Yeah. It's in order to find him, we have to go through a purification process. Right? It's a part of the journey of the soul. So I like that. Yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts or questions so far? Okay, text number 12.
The presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized first as a reflection on water, and again as a second reflection on the wall of a room, although the sun itself is situated in the sky.
Yeah, so the sun is so far away, and yet we're experiencing the sun rays, especially when it comes in our room in the morning. It's a nice feeling, right, when the rays light start to enter the room. So similarly, the Lord is, the pure devotee is aware that the Lord's presence is illuminating everything, even though the Lord himself is not directly entangled in this creation. Okay, text 13.
The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego, and then in the body, senses, and mind.
In this purport, there's a nice example Prabhupada gives of a rose. He says that a conditioned soul sees a beautiful flower in the garden and immediately thinks, wow, that's a nice aromatic flower. I want that. I want to smell it. I want to enjoy that. Right? And a devotee sees the same flower as a reflection of the Supreme Lord. He thinks, he or she thinks, this beautiful flower is made possible by the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it belongs to the Supreme Lord and should be utilized in his service. So two kinds of vision, the conditioned soul wanting to take the flower for me, and then the, Prabhupada says here, the conditioned soul, and the devotee sees the flower as an object to be used in service, right? So I know we all think about Krishna when we see flowers, and we have to like abstain from picking them from everyone's gardens, right? Back in the old days, they were a little more bold about these things before there was like PR concerns. And sometimes devotees would just go and like raid a whole garden at night. And then it backfired on the public image of the Hare Krishna movement. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I've been used to walking around with devotees, so I was walking with my mom, and we were right next to a bush, it's on someone's yard. I was like, I'll just take this flower. There's the me, But she was mortified.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, she was really I can't believe you just did that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, so keeping that in mind, it's not culturally so accepted, yeah, to pick other people's flowers. But when let's say we walk by a beautiful, flowers or anything that we feel like, wow, I wish I could take that for the Lord, we can do it in our mind. We don't have to, Krishna doesn't need the physical object to experience our love. Right? So let's say there is a beautiful rose bush and it's on someone's property and we don't want to invade their space. So we go, okay, Krishna, I thought about you when I saw that rose bush. Can you please enjoy these flowers? And you can do it in your mind as an act of service. Even when we're sick, actually, sometimes when we're feeling under the weather, it's the deepest time spiritually. Why is that? Because we're forced into sort of not being able to do much with our external senses, especially if we're bedridden, right? If we're in our bed. unwell, and maybe going in and out of consciousness with a fever or something, we're not able to do things with the material body much. What we can do very often is apply the mind and the consciousness in service, so that we can do meditation in our mind, like going in my mind to the deity, bringing them water, going to the devotees in our mind, giving them, offering something, and that way the consciousness remains in that proper position. Has anybody done that here? Like use the power of your imagination or your mind to do service?
I just was wondering the other day, would it be possible just to offer that flower without picking it? So I thought about it, and it is exactly did it, but it was like, oh, this flower is beautiful, we must offer it. And I said, like, can we just offer it to the Lord like this? And now you explain that.
Yeah, and it's a dance, right? So there is room for offering in our mind, and then there is a process where we do bring a flower to the deity, right? So it's both and. If the situation doesn't allow us to do it physically, we do it in our mind. If it allows us to do it physically, we do it physically. And why is that? Because when the senses are engaged, like picking the flower, trimming it, making a vase, it's absorbing the mind in the service of Krishna. It's very practical. Because usually our minds are not strong enough to just do all of our practice in our mind, right? Like back in the Satya Yuga, maybe it was everyone's able to just close their eyes and just visualize all their service in their mind to the Lord and perfect their existence. But nowadays, our minds, we don't last much more than a few moments on any thought, which is why videos nowadays are so quick and rapid. Our attention span's so short. So even though a devotee appears to be merged in this experience of the material energy, so just like if there's a green tree and a green parrot flies into that tree. So if you're not really honing in on your sight, you're going to think, oh, it's just a green tree. You're going to miss the parrot. And then you notice the parrot only when it flies away, right? And so all of a sudden, or even here in Gainesville, a couple times a year, these trees get all these black berries, these little tiny black berries, and the whole sky, I don't know if you've noticed this, it just happened in the last week or two, is full of birds up there on the top of the canopies, like chirping and all excited because the berries have ripened and they're eating them. And we hear the sound, but if you weren't hearing the sound, you just see, okay, there's a tree. And all of a sudden, the cloud of birds flies away, and then we see the difference. So just like that, the devotee appears to be all absorbed in this energy, but is separate, right? Separate because the consciousness is with Krishna. And then 15.
The living entity can vividly feel his existence as the awareness of the ego. During the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost, like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distressed, thinking himself to be lost.
Okay, so we all know, I think most of us here have had dreams in our sleeping time. We all know how absorbing it can be to be in a dream and think you're actually living that. Who here's had a vivid dream recently? Okay, interesting. Yeah, so a lot of us. And I recently had a random dream where someone was trying to take a snowball, like it's not even snowing here, but like someone took a snowball and was trying to put it down my neck. And I woke up and I was like really frustrated, like, why are they putting this cold snowball in my neck? So just things like that. But I woke up feeling like it was actually happening and I had to get it off and it was cold. And so very similarly, when we're in this identification with the ego, we forget ourselves, and we're like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distressed. Yeah, any thoughts on that one? Okay, and then the last verse, text 16.
Even by mature understanding, one can realize this individuality, then the situation he accepts under falsely ego becomes manifest to him.
So when I can recognize that there's a nice expression here, Prabhupada says, soul inhabiting the body versus just the body and mind, right? Within, when I have that consciousness, then I can see my own individuality within this world. So these are very dense, very like philosophical, and I know some of you are not feeling well, and it can feel kind of this, but that's why these purports of Prabhupada are so helpful, and just trying to make them relevant to our lives. Do text 6 together. Let's do the Sanskrit. Is the mouse stuff again?
Yeah. Nice.
Okay, let's sing this together. Yamadibir yoga patar abhyasan shraddha mayi bhavena satyena matkata shravanena cha. Go down to translation. Together, one has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system and must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. And I'd like to go down to the third paragraph of this purport, and you can go back on your own time and read the first 2 paragraphs. So it starts with Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami explains very nicely in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, aka Nectar of Devotion, how this bhava, or preliminary stage of love of God, is achieved. He states that one first of all has to become faithful, shraddhayanvita. Faith is attained by controlling the senses, either by yoga practice, following the rules and regulations and practicing the sitting postures, or by engaging directly in bhakti yoga, as recommended in the previous verse. Of the 9 different items of bhakti yoga, the first and foremost is to chant and hear about the Lord. So what are the 9? Hearing, chanting, remembering,
Deity worship.
yeah, archanam. Okay, wait, let me go through them in Sanskrit. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, to serve the feet, right? Padasevanam, Archanam, deity worship, Vandanam,
And then one prayers.
prayers, Dasyam means to be of service, right? Dasyam. Satyam means, Sakyam means friendship. Sakyam Atmanivedana, to fully surrender oneself. And we do this in like prostrating ourselves on the floor, right? Like, here I am, Krishna, I'm yours. And when we're paying obeisances, it can become so habitual that we might just like, oh, throw myself on the floor, get up, and then I forget the purpose of it, you know? Has anyone happened that you just forget why you're doing it, just do it? It's so easy in this world to get habitual about things. But this Atmanivedanam, to surrender the self completely, it's a huge task for the ego. What? I'm not going to surrender completely. But when we're paying obeisances in the morning or the evening, whenever we come in, there's a mini opportunity to practice Atmanivedanam. Okay, in this moment, I'm fully yours while I'm paying obeisances. Then I get back up. Okay, the ego's still there, but I'm trying, right? Getting in the habit. So the 9 processes of devotional service, the first and foremost is to chant and hear. That is also mentioned here. Matkata shravanena cha. One may come to the standard of faithfulness by following the rules and regulations of the yoga system. And the same goal can be achieved simply by chanting and hearing about the transcendental activities of the Lord. The word cha is significant. Cha means and. Bhakti yoga is direct, and the other process is indirect. But even if the indirect process is taken, there is no success unless one comes fully to the direct process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Therefore, the word satyena is used here. In this connection, Swami Sridhar comments that satyena means nishkapatena, without duplicity. The impersonalists are full of duplicity. Sometimes they pretend to execute devotional service, but their ultimate idea is to become one with the Supreme. Okay, so an example of duplicity in this world might look like, I'm really being a good friend or a good servant to somebody, a good support person. Really in the back of my mind is I want to get their position. I want to get maybe their job, right? Let's say in a corporation. I want that. I want to be CEO, but I'm going to do all the things that look right and, kind of buddy up and do all that, but with the ulterior motive. So the impersonalists have that too. Their definition?
Yeah, the definition of deceit.
Yeah, deceit, right? So to be deceitful without duplicity. So we want to be without duplicity, without deceit. This is duplicity, kapata. The Bhagavatam does not allow this duplicity. In the beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it's clearly stated, paramo nirmatsara. This treatise, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, is meant for those who are completely free from envy. Okay, completely. Okay, we'll come back to that. The same point is again stressed here. Unless one is completely faithful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engages himself in the process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, there is no possibility for liberation. So, keeping in mind two things with those statements, we hear completely twice there, right? Completely. So, when I hear that, the mind, I think most of us who are reading this or hearing it will think, well, I'm not completely free. So what about me? So again, remembering Krishna consciousness is a gradual process. There's the goal, and then there's where we're at. And also remembering that every acharya has a style of writing as well, just keeping that in mind. And Prabhupada's style is very much emphasis words with emphasis, right? All completely, fully, just to create that, like this is the goal, like complete surrender, right? And so that's his literary style, and to emphasize the urgency of it and the importance of the work of the journey. So when we hear the statement that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is meant for those who are completely free from envy, I want to touch briefly on that. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also tells Arjuna, I'm telling you the science of self-realization because you are free from envy. Right? You're not envious of me. So in that purport, Prabhupada says that generally the commentators of the Bhagavad Gita are envious of God. And their purpose is they're wanting to become, right? They're wanting to become the supreme or the God that they're discussing. And so again, duplicity. It's not pure. Prabhupada, when he came to America, he had the Bhagavad Gita as it is, right? He created that title. Why? Because it's directly Krishna conscious and not ulterior motive. The message has not been changed, whereas some of the impersonalists or others were commenting on the Bhagavad Gita, but they weren't really changing hearts much. They weren't changing the heart because the motive is not pure. It's not unalloyed. Right? So a definition of envy is resentment of another person's success. Yeah. So wanting what they have. And as long as I have that in my heart, I can't offer pure devotion. Yeah. We last semester when we did the course on shadows, right? We talked about envy and jealousy in one of the sessions. And we can check it in our own hearts and we can reflect on it. Oh, it's coming up for me, right? It's coming. I feel some jealousy of this person. Sometimes it happens in a spiritual context where one person will be getting a certain kind of maha, or they'll get attention from a senior devotee that we really aspire to get attention from, right? And we feel like, oh, they're getting it and I'm not. What's going on? I want it too. There can be a little bit of that feeling of, oh, I'm being left out, or it's competitive, or I want that, and I'm not so happy that they have that. Envy means that I'm not happy at the happiness of others. Kind of disappoints me when they're too happy. And it kind of makes me happy when they're struggling a little. That's also envy, right? Because now they're taken down a notch. Okay, good. It makes me feel better about myself when they're not doing so great. So we can reflect on that in our life. How does it show up in our heart, that envious mentality? And one of the things that we talked about in that course was finding ways to meet the need that is sometimes when there's a jealousy or some envy in the heart, it's a message to us that we're not getting a need met, right? And here we're talking about the more, the less insidious envy of God, but more just, oh, I'm feeling a nudge of jealousy towards another person in the ashram. what is it in my life that's missing that I could use that would help with that? So let's say they're getting attention from a person I really want to get attention from. How can I arrange that to happen? What can I do to get closer to that devotee, render some service so I can also get some opportunity? So then rather than focusing on what the other person's getting and comparing and feeling bad about what I don't have, just go, oh, okay, there's some message here inside of something I need, and I'd like to get that need met. So what would be another example? How does it show up in your life? What are some moments where we feel jealous? Like what situations? Or maybe you don't. Actually, maybe none of you feel jealous.
Somebody has something or gets something that we won't get or
Yeah. Let's say someone in the ashram gets a new car and we're feeling some jealousy, right? There's some beautiful car in the parking lot or something. Sometimes the need is not necessarily for a car. This is where it takes some self-reflection. I might feel that I need, what is it about them getting the car that I'm jealous of, right? Maybe it's the fact that they now have autonomy and they can move about and I'm feeling a little restricted. How can I find ways to get some autonomy or some feeling of not, to work with that feeling? So just being thoughtful about it and talking to your mentors and seniors in your life about it. That can help with this envy process. And then I want to talk to you about the hearing, right? So in this verse, Prabhupada is saying hearing and chanting are the two most important of the 9 processes. They're the foundation. Right? So I want to ask you a question. Why is hearing so important in spiritual life? What is it? What is one of the reasons? I've come up with several reasons. I'm curious if you can share what comes up for you. Yes.
The textbook reason is that it purifies the intelligence.
Purifies the why does it? How does it do that? How does it purify the intelligence?
It starts to replace some of our patterns with patterns of transcendental thought.
Great point. Yeah, it's like if you have a rock and then the drip of water over millennia will create a big crevice in that rock, right? So the hearing repetitively every day, boom, boom. It's like breaking an indent into our old patterns. Yeah, it's a great, nice way of saying it.
I think I'm basically saying the same thing he said. It's a constant reminder of the real situation.
Yeah.
And it pulls us out of our false ego, and it reminds us all the time.
Right. Even coming to Bhagavatam class in the morning, right? It's a daily reminder of it. And even, I have to say, even if we're feeling out of it, like I know some of you are not feeling well, if you're sitting here and you're tired and your body's not great, not feeling great, even then the consciousness is becoming purified just by being physically present somewhere in a room with this transcendental sound vibration. There was a story like that where a devotee had fallen asleep in the class that Prabhupada was giving in Hindi, and Prabhupada was speaking in Hindi, and this devotee was American, and so didn't understand, and so felt drowsy and fell asleep. And then Prabhupada said, "How are you sleeping in my class?" And the devotee, woke up with a start and said, "Prabhupada, I don't understand Hindi." And Prabhupada didn't let that be an excuse. That was not an excuse. And he said, even if you don't understand Hindi, the sound vibration will be purifying you. Right? So if we can just get ourselves in that vibration and as much as possible stay awake and be alert as much as possible, even if we're in our bed sick, like some of the devotees are, then the sound vibration is still working, even if they are unconscious or not unconscious, sounds heavy, drowsy or unwell, right? So even when we're sleeping, sound vibration can still enter, but more so if we're awake and alert, that much more. So what else is why hearing is important? Yeah.
I think it happens to a lot of us where we like have a question and then the next day the Bhagavatam class answers it, or just there's some congruencies that Krishna will make you read the same verse like 3 times in 1 week or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why hearing is so important is because when we do it from the right place of heart, it's the way that Krishna communicates with us.
Yes. a way, it's, so when we're in that space of wanting to receive messages from Krishna, then we receive messages from Krishna, right? Through our hearing process. I love that point about the synchronicities start to happen. When I have a question, suddenly I'll hear the same verse 3 times. It's, keep an eye out for those, because that's Krishna's way of speaking with us through the scripture, through the verses, through the realizations of other devotees. What else? Anyone else that hasn't shared yet? Is there something that is about, what is it about hearing that is emphasized so much? Okay, yeah. Can we pass the microphone?
Hare Krishna. It was really subtle, but the first thing that I thought about was hearing something more than our minds. We get so wrapped up in what the mind is saying, what it wants, and what it's speaking, but it's all nonsense and illusion. So to hear Krishna through devotion and reading, we're able to transcend what the mind is telling us.
Have you ever been in a really dark room and then pulled drapes open quickly, right? And the room's flooded with light. That's what it's like. We get so encumbered in this dark little space of our brain, and we think our view of the world is real and the reality is coming from our brain. But when we hear the transcendental sound vibration, it's like the sun rays just piercing through that, coming in. So thanks for sharing that realization. Yes.
Prabhupada talks about when we're asleep, we're completely oblivious and inert. But if there's some danger and somebody yells into our ear, then we'll wake up.
Right, like if there's a fire, someone's shaking us, fire, wake up. Suddenly we'll very quickly come to, right, when there's an alert. So that's also part of the hearing. It's an alert message. Wake up, wake up, wake up. There was a beautiful song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Jeev Jago, right? And so when we were kids, that was the song that was sung in the morning. Jeev Jago. My parents would sing that when they would wake us up. And, when you're a kid, you don't really like to wake up usually very early. So we would go, no, put the pillow over our head. And the lights would turn on. And it's actually a sweet memory, because even though in the moment it was like, I didn't want to get up. And waking up and then going through that process of, okay, now we're going to the temple or we're going to be with Krishna. And I do feel that effect was there, that spiritual effect of going from the darkness of sleep to the brightness of Krishna consciousness, right? Wakes us up. And so another one was that hearing becomes the testimony. There's a Sanskrit word, shabda. Shabda means testimony or evidence. So I might not directly see Krishna. I might not directly understand something, but by hearing about it, it becomes my reality, becomes my evidence. And we have, in another class, I talked about how Jiva Goswami describes the different types of shabda, right? Different types of evidence that we have. But we won't get into that now, but just know that there's different ways that we gain evidence. And one of them is through hearing the scripture and the sadhus and their realizations, because they have experienced it. And so when they tell it to us, we trust that, oh yeah, okay, there's something to this. I remember when I was, there was a time period in my early 20s when I started to do a lot of doubting and questioning, which is, I think, a normal part of individuating from a group, as a young person that grew up in it. And I remember when I was doing all this kind of deconstruction of everything and trying to understand it all, I had in the back of my mind that certain devotees that I knew who were extremely intelligent and very thoughtful devotees, I would think, well, if they believe it, there has to be some merit to this, right? Even if I'm having all these doubts and it doesn't really make sense in certain ways, I would go back to that in my mind. Well, these great devotees are following this process, so there must be something legitimate to it. So it becomes the evidence to help our faith. And another thing is that by hearing, we start to develop affection for Krishna. And we start to feel at home more and more in the spiritual environment and less in the material environment. Right? So that one day we'll realize, wow, I don't feel so at home anymore in material discussions and material conversations and the material energy. I'm actually feeling more at home over here with hearing about the Lord and his devotees and discussing about the Lord and his devotees. So coming to our real home, right? And there's a singer, I don't know actually about her background, so I don't know if she's religious, she might be. Carrie Underwood, maybe you know, is she Christian? Is she Christian? Not sure. Yeah. So there's a song that she wrote that really was striking. It's called "This Is Our Temporary Home," and the words are, "This is our temporary home, not where we belong. Windows and rooms that I'm walking through. This is just a stop on the way to where we're going. I'm not afraid because this is my temporary home." So it's kind of a profound, when I heard it, I was like, wow, it's a profound song about we're passing through this place, but we're going somewhere where it's our real home. So the more that we invest in our real home and our real self, the less we'll be distressed by the separation of those in our lives who we love also. That's the other effect of hearing. We'll become safe and sheltered from the constant distresses of this world, the pain of losing others, all these things that are happening to us, that will happen, even if they haven't happened yet. And we'll be like, oh yeah, but I've been building my foundation in eternal perspective. So I will be less scared and less distressed. So thank you all so much for engaging in this discussion about the benefits of hearing this wonderful Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and other scriptures. And if there's any question, I'd like to answer it. We'll do one question or one comment. You wait till then? Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I just wanted to say something about the dreams. Because the dreams that we have often reflect what we're going through. Like I had a dream last night that there was this injured animal, iguana, that kept trying to force its way in my home. And I think the dream was trying to tell me to take care of other devotees. And I didn't have the facility to take care of the iguana. So I was like, feeling like I didn't have the facility to take care of other devotees. Yeah.
It's a testament to your thoughtfulness that you were able to extract that realization from the dream. Someone else may have had a dream about an iguana that's hurt and they might not even relate that at all, but you're thinking about, oh, what is it? How does this apply to my connection with devotees and caring for devotees? It's a really special way that you're thinking about it. Yeah. So extracting meaning from the messages of this world is another way to apply Krishna to our life. Yeah.
Just on this topic of hearing and also envy, like one of my favorite quotes from Bhakti Swami is until we're ready to see the people around us like surpass us, and until we're genuinely praying for that, then we won't be qualified to enter the spiritual world. Wow, yeah.
If you think about Srimati Radharani, we hear in various sources that she's more happy to bring others to Krishna than for her directly to go to Krishna. And that statement, I think, is beyond our comprehension because we don't understand Radharani's love for Krishna. If we fully understood like Radharani's love for Krishna, for her to be happier bringing the conditioned souls to Krishna than to be directly with him, that's an incredible statement, right? So that's our aspiration. I love that point too. One day, I'd like to be happier bringing this devotee to maybe a mentor of mine or a spiritual teacher, somebody that I want association from. I'm happier to say, hey, introduce my friend. That brings me more joy than being the one to like, oh, I'm going to get all the attention. I'm going to get, right? So that's a nice realization. Anything else about envy or about hearing? Yes.
Thank you so much for class. So whenever you were asking, do you ever feel envy or jealousy within devotees or other things? I couldn't really think of anything specifically in terms of like being jealous of someone else's advancement. show up in different lights too, just so I can kind of recognize what envy looks like to me.
I think it can look like something as subtle as somebody shares some good news and we're not that happy to hear it. Like, wow, they got the house and they got the, or whatever it is. So they got that job. Oh, they got a new job. Okay. Whatever it is that we're maybe a little bit insecure about in our life, it could look like maybe not being so happy about what they have. So if I'm maybe secretly or internally wanting something and then I hear someone else has it, how am I feeling about that person having it? Just checking in. That could be a way to do it. But also as we progress in spiritual life, the jealousies and envies do wash away. So it's not like we have to like, oh, I don't have any. That's it's not a problem if you don't have any, right? It's a good sign if you're able to be happy for others. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say maybe more so like my mood of how that would look in envy. Kind of like indifference, like I don't really care. So it's not anything like personal, it's more so impersonal.
Right, yes, that's a subtle way too. The devotees of the Lord and of Lord Chaitanya specifically are very generous of heart. So if we find ourselves pulling back our generosity of spirit and we're just like, just kind of cutting off or becoming impersonal or numb, that's also connected to envy. Yeah, so a little bit all related. Yeah.
I thought of this question. We know, we hear this like term that the Muslims use, like envious God. And I read that you can be envious of the spiritual master, you can be envious ever, basically. But I also feel like it comes up most with peers because they have something that you want. And you see yourself in that position more so. So yeah, do you have any comment on that? How we hear these terms, but then it also comes up, I guess, more directly with peers, so when you can like see yourself in their shoes. What are your thoughts?
On what to do about it?
I'm more so like
how we notice it more in our peers.
Well, yeah, like we can be envious of everyone, but is the main category peers, or is it like you hear these higher up terms, but it doesn't process as much? Right.
I think the starting point is our peers because they're the ones that are most around us. We may be good at adoring and appreciating and serving those who are senior, and it may be more pure, but those, it's like they say, within the family, that's when you have the most friction, right? Your egos get the most ruffled with those who are closest with you. So when we're like close with others, that's when the parts of us that need work start to show up. Whereas if we're with a stranger or somebody at UF, we can be on our best behavior and the conversation's great. We're just purely unalloyed, right? Loving them. But when it's like a member of the family, all of a sudden friction comes up. So I think that's natural. And I think it's a great starting point to practice. Yeah. That's why it's so important to bring our peers the mercy, help them like, oh, I got some pizza, bonus pizza, let me share it, right? Like starting to apply that principle of generosity. So, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, prasādam ki jai.
Jai.
Jai to all the above.
We need service.
And you're kind of control.
Oh, thanks.